So let's say you just launched and you got like a couple of customers, but you're kind of just starting out. For those folks, I usually say, you know what, you actually want to keep the positioning kind of loose.
Yeah.
Because you don't know who's going to love
Figure
your
out where it's
stuff,
gonna-
and you don't know where it's going to go, and you don't know what's going to work and what isn't going to work. And so at the beginning, it's good to keep it loose. But once you do start seeing patterns, so you have enough traction in the market where you start saying, you know what, customers like this love us. Customers like this close really fast. Customers like this never ask for a discount. Then you can start thinking about tightening up the positioning and say, well, if we focus just on customers like that, could we make our number?
Ignition sequence start. 3, 2, 1.
April Dunford, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. How's it going with you, Dan?
I'm doing amazing. We're here at LTV Conf in New York City. You gave a great talk about positioning and marketing in your experience. 7 companies, 7 startups.
7
startups,
6
16
exits.
6 exits,
16 product launches.
You've
So many
played
products.
predominantly VP of marketing,
Yep.
marketing lead, CEO recently of the last company.
Yeah, I've been
Yeah.
CEO, I've been COO. I came from the product side originally, so I've
Yeah.
had product teams reporting into me a bunch because I'm kind of more of a product marketer, I guess I would say, at heart. But yeah, done a lot of stuff.
Billion-dollar exits.
I've run some sales teams too, but I wouldn't hire me as the sales leader. But occasionally the
can
sales
fill the
leader,
gap if need be.
Yeah, occasionally the sales leader leaves, and it's like, congratulations, you're now running sales. I'm like, oh god, yeah, okay.
So billion-dollar exits, Jana system.
Yeah, so I
couple
had
hundred
one
million.
big one, which was 1.7 billion. That was a big one.
Yeah.
But and then a bunch of kind of good hefty size ones. Yeah. Exits are good. You're not always happy when you exit. Sometimes you wish they had just kept growing.
Yeah,
But
you have a lot of fun, especially building teams.
Yeah.
And that's what I was really excited to have you on here and talk about is, the scale up, the growth side. I mean, a lot of people watching already have kind of pseudo product market fit and decent amount of revenue. But one thing that I've been watching you speak, April. I mean, I feel like every time we're at a conference, you're around. If they're
I
smart, they
know.
bring you on stage. Because you literally you deliver the goods and really let the entrepreneurs know. But my thing is, you talked about the CRM software that you worked with that was at about $1 million ARR.
Yeah.
And positioning, do you mind sharing that story? Because I think it's just so relevant to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that CRM one, that was Jana. So we started out as a CRM for large enterprises, and this was a while back. And so Salesforce was in the market, but they were only focused on the very low end SMB part of the market. On the enterprise side, there was a big company in the Valley called Siebel, and they were giant, like $2 billion revenue, 8,000 employees, an incredible company. And we were 30 employees, maybe $1.5 million revenue, and we had this product. And we were positioning it as an enterprise CRM, which put us directly in competition with them. So not surprisingly, every deal we went to do, we would walk in, and the first question we get is, how are you different than Siebel? And the hard answer to that question was, we kind of sucked compared to them. Like, we were newer than they were. We didn't have as many features as they had.
And what were you guys selling
We had-
price-wise? Was it like kind of a 6-figure annual contract value kind of deal?
Yeah, actually, because it was really big enterprise, generally our deals were more than $1 million.
Yeah, wow.
So we did a few that were like $10 million deals. Like, they were big deals. At that point, we only had 1.5 million revenues. We had one big customer and 3 small customers, and that was it.
That's it.
And so our biggest problem was getting a new customer. So we'd get in, we'd have to do this kind of bake-off against Siebel. Siebel guys would come in and they're like, look at us, we're so successful, look at our customer list, look at all our features, look at all our stuff. And Tom Siebel was a famous guy, and he had a book and, and a helicopter and all this stuff.
How do
and
you compete?
Yeah, we were just like nobody. We're like this little Canadian. We're like, yeah, us too. And so how we competed was we had 2 things. So one, we had a feature that Siebel didn't have that we thought was pretty cool. The problem was every customer we showed it to didn't actually use it. Like, they thought it was neat, but they didn't understand the value of it. So sometimes we got them intrigued with that thing, but it didn't really help us close deals. And then the second thing was, we were so desperate to land business, we would just drop our price. Like if you said, how much does it cost? We're like, how much money you got?
Yeah, what's your budget? Yeah.
And so if you wanted cheap, crappy Siebel, we were your thing. And so needless to say, that's not very good positioning.
That's not, nope.
And most companies don't want to have something as important as their customer relationship management on some cheap, crappy thing, right? So needless to say, we're not doing too good. And we got extraordinarily lucky, in my opinion, in that we hired a guy, a sales rep, and we literally hired him because he came in, and in the interview, we asked him, what are you going to do for us if we hire you? And the guy said, my buddy runs investment banking at Goldman Sachs. And if you hire me, I'll get you a meeting. We said, hired.
Yeah, hired. And if we don't produce,
When's
fired,
the
but
meeting
let's get
coming?
the meeting. Yeah.
Right. So we get the meeting with the head of investment banking. We're all excited. And I decide I'm going to do right along because I want to see, well, first of all, I want to clap eyes on the head of investment banking at Goldman Sachs. Two, I want to see how this guy works and, does the guy like our stuff? So we get in the meeting. Head of investment banking of Goldman Sachs is there. And my sales guy is great. He does this great pitch. And he shows our special feature because we always showed it in the demo. He shows our special feature. And this head of investment banking freaks out. He's freaking out. He's like, whoa, wait, stop. Do you mean you can tell me if this person knows this person? We're like, yeah. And they're like, you can model this and this. We're like, yeah. He's like, I've never seen anything like this. Hang on. Stops the meeting. He runs down the hall. He gets his 3 vice presidents that work for him. They come back. He's like, show him the thing. Show him the thing. So we show him the thing. Everybody gets so excited. They ask the same questions. Does that mean if 2 guys sit on a board together, you can model that? Yeah. Does that mean if people are in the same golf club, you can model that? Yeah. They're like, oh my God. And they're jumping up and down. Everyone's freaking out. We close a deal in the meeting. This is unheard of. Our deals usually close in like a year.
12,
this guy's
16
so
months.
excited. He's like, get that thing in here right now. We need
Wanna
it now.
use it
And
tomorrow,
so,
yeah.
so we go back to the office. We're like, ho, investment bankers. They dig our stuff. So let's try that out. So we managed to get a couple other meetings with investment banks. Same thing happens. We show them the thing. Investment bankers jump up and down. We close a deal. We're like, well, this is amazing. We've never had this reaction from anybody. So we go back to the office, and we had this kind of big meeting where we're like, maybe we need to change the positioning. Maybe we're not a CRM for enterprises. Maybe we're a CRM for investment banks. That doesn't sound like a big shift, but that's terrifying. You got to go in and tell your board, hey, people, you wrote me checks
For
to
this
be
idea.
CRM
Yeah,
for
to compete against
everything.
Siebel, and we're
right.
gonna- yeah.
And now we're going to come in and tell you we're this little niche-y thing in this little wee market. And like the board hated it. They're like, you're supposed to be a billion-dollar company. How are you going to be billion? Like, how many investment banks are there in the world? You're not going to make enough money doing that. And how we got them past that is, we were big on Jeffrey Moore at this company. So
crossing the chasm.
so we had all read, and so we gave him bowling pin strategy. So we said, look, we drew the pins on the board and said, look, investment banking, that's our lead pin. When we knock that one over, then we're going to go to private client services, research, retail banking. Then we're going to go to insurance, and we're going to do property casualty, whatever. By the way, the size
Total
of that
addressable
market,
market,
here's the giant
billion.
number. So don't worry, we're not going to be investment banking forever. That's just where we're going to get started. And by the way, we're not giving anything up because nobody wants to buy our crap anyway.
Yeah.
Right? So we make this shift, and the shift was the most incredible thing that I've ever lived through in a startup. Like, we went from $1.5 million, and we had been holding at $1.5 million for like years.
Yeah.
We went from $1.5 million to almost 80 million revenue in 18 months.
Whoa.
I hired so many people. I never hired so many people.
Just warm bodies,
Like, it
get
was
in,
just like,
yeah,
Pulse, yes,
laptops,
you're
go.
in, come, like we were growing so fast. And the thing was just like a rocket to the moon. And then the end of that story is that we won a bunch of deals head to head with Siebel. We started to get really good at not competing with them at all. So we would go in and they'd say, how are you different than Siebel? And we'd say, Siebel's great. We love those guys. They're general purpose CRM. What we are is for you, well, for Wall Street, special CRM, and you need special stuff with the special people, and you don't want the same stuff a call center uses, do you?
Ooh.
And so we get pretty good at sort of positioning them out of the space.
Yeah.
So
and I love it because it's not about talking crap or anything. It's not saying their product's inferior. It's just like they're general purpose.
They are.
We're specialists.
We took their own strong positioning, which is we own the whole market, and used it against them.
Yeah.
And said, yeah, they own the whole market. They're fantastic. We love those guys. Love what they're doing. They're huge. They're amazing. Not for you.
Having done this 16, dozens of product launches and helping many startups, I know you invest, you've bought companies.
I do a little investing. I don't think I'm a very good investor, but I have invested in companies where I've done some work with them and I feel like I'm elbows deep in the company. And then, you fall in love with these and then you're like, yeah, you're raising around. I'm going to throw my shekels in there with everybody else.
But I mean, like you take this seriously. Like you're a practitioner. It's your, it sounds like you love it. How important is getting that positioning? Like if you went into a company, and they didn't have a strong position, is this like step one? Is it step two?
Yeah, so there's a few things that are really important. So the first thing is, if you're super early stage, so let's say you just launched and you got like a couple of customers, but you're kind of just starting out. For those folks, I usually say, you know what, you actually want to keep the positioning kind of loose. Yeah. Because you don't know who's going to love your stuff. And you don't know where it's going to go, and you don't know what's going to work and what isn't going to work. And so at the beginning, it's good to keep it loose. But once you do start seeing patterns, so you have enough traction in the market where you start saying, you know what, customers like this love us. Customers like this close really fast. Customers like this never ask for a discount. Then you can start thinking about tightening up the positioning and say, well, if we focus just on customers like that, could we make our number? Yeah. If the answer is yes, then why wouldn't you just sell them? They're the easy people to sell. Just focus on them and then worry about how you're going to get the next segment. And
this is I love that you said that, April, because I mean, I think that make the number people, a lot of people watching this are at the 1 to 2 million ARR, bootstrapped, non-coastal founders, like just the guys trying to figure it out. But they have this growth ambition. So they know where they're at now. They know where when they go. Yeah. And it's just asking yourself what you just said, which is, okay, this is the number you want to be at. You want to double MRR? Great. Could you do it with that customer? Right. And if the answer is yes, then you're introducing risk into execution by trying to not go focus and be too broad.
It's exactly it. And people are scared to focus down because it feels like, I don't want to be this small little thing focused on this small little market and whatever. But the reality is the easiest way to get traction. Is the smallest you can go to still meet your number is the easiest way to get traction, and then you open it up after that. Yeah. And that's how everybody gets started. That's how every good company starts, is they start on something really focused, and then they figure out how to expand the boundaries of that as they get bigger and bigger and bigger. Like right now, Silicon Valley is obsessed with category creation.
Yeah, the Slacks of the world.
And this is bullshit. Mm-hmm. It's hot bullshit. Yeah. Because most companies don't start creating a brand new category. They start as a niche play in an existing category because that's the easiest place to sell. And then once you hit 50 million, 100 million, you can do a lot of hot, fancy category creation at that point because you're big enough, you're well-known enough, you got enough money, you got referenceable customers, you're in a position of strength. And Qualtrics is a great example of this, right? Did this beautiful job of this category creation thing, but they didn't do it until they were 100 million revenue. Yeah. And before that, they were a niche play in the survey market like everybody else.
Yeah. It's interesting in the SaaS space where people see that today, they point to MailChimp for freemium, and it's like they weren't free for over a decade.
I know. Yeah. Right. And everybody forgets that Salesforce used to be freemium. Yeah. Not anymore.
No, it's interesting. They don't. We
have short memories. Well, we have short memories because everybody's young, and you need the oldster to show up once in a while, like me, and go, "Listen,
history
back in my
itself.
day,
I
was walking in the snow up to my knee.
We had to sit in the server rooms, freeze our butts off, deploying software. You kids don't know how good it is.
We made them pay for everything up front. Can you believe that? Yeah.
That's hilarious.
It was actually a way better model.
Yeah. In regards to the playbook, from a growth point of view, what is the marketing playbook for you in regards to?
Well, so I think that once you've got a certain amount of traction, then the important thing to do is to say, okay, so these are my low-hanging fruit customers for these reasons. So I can identify the characteristics of a target account that is going to make them really, really love my stuff. And if I understand that's essentially the basis of your positioning, right? So
can you identify them in the market?
Right.
And ideally make a list.
Right. And ideally make a list. And it has to be more than just like feelings, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't say, I'm going after companies that love design. I can't measure that. I can't see that. I can't whatever. But if you say, I'm going after companies that have bought Photoshop plus this, I can get a list of that. I know where those people hang out. I can go on forums where they are. Like I can identify these people easy. I got this.
Yeah.
So you've got, the way the positioning works is you say, okay, I understand what my customers compare me to. So what they would do if I didn't exist, which is usually if you're B2B, it's Excel or Word or hire an intern or something.
Yeah, build something.
Then I understand what I've got that doesn't have feature function wise. And I understand how that translates into value. Then I look at that value and I say, who cares a lot about that value? That's going to get me to my segmentation, which is who am I going after? And then you say, okay, well, if I'm trying to communicate that value to these customers, what market am I actually in?
Mm-hmm.
That's your positioning.
And
Once
choosing
you
the
have
market
that,
that has a willingness to pay, that has an unmet need.
can meet my, is big enough to meet my revenue goal, all that
Again,
stuff.
back to target, which is so
It
important.
has to be big enough to meet the revenue. Because you might say, I'm really good with, fishermen in Manhattan, but there's only 3 of them.
Yeah, not a big enough market.
So I can't meet my revenue goal, so that's so good. My mom thinks I'm great, but she can only buy 1.
Yeah.
So you got to look at it and say, how big is it? And say, okay, it's this big and I'm only going to get this many. I could probably do that. So it's got to be big enough to support the business goal.
Mm-hmm.
But if it is, the positioning forms the foundation of everything downstream that happens in marketing and sales. It's the input.
Yeah.
So then you say, okay, I got to build a marketing plan, and my marketing plan is to go after specifically these people. So when your market's very general, it's really hard to build a marketing plan for that. When the market's really specific, it's super easy.
Way easy.
Super easy.
The product
Like-
falls in line. The sales conversation falls
Super
in line.
easy, super
Yeah.
easy. Again, it's so
Case
easy I can
studies
make
are
a
easy,
list, right?
yeah.
I can make a list and say, look, call these guys. Easy, right? It's hard when you go generic. Like I got hired once to work with this company, and the first meeting I had with the CEO, I said, who's your target market? And he said, Fortune 1000 companies. And I said, that's it? You just write down 1,000 and that's like everybody? Oh, well, that's amazing. And I said, well, wait, they had this software and it was for business analysts who were doing requirements stuff for internal software projects. So I said, wait, do all the Fortune 1000 do internal software projects? I feel a gold mining company. Do I write any software? And he's like, no. So we cross those off. So like, natural resources, all those ones in Fortune 1000, we cross them off. And I'm like, huh. And I'm like, okay, but I come from tech and I've never heard of you guys. So do tech companies use your stuff? No. So it's an internal software project, but you don't sell software because they use different things. So not the tech companies. Okay, so I'm scratching off IBM and all the other big ones. So I'm like, well, wait, okay, but what if I was Fortune 2000?
Could I still use your product?
And I have this, but I build a lot of internal software and I got a lot of business analysts. Would that be a good prospect for you? And he says, yeah, probably would. So I'm like, okay, so let me get this straight. Size of the company is bullshit. It actually doesn't matter.
Was that an ego thing for them, you think?
They just didn't think about it.
Okay.
I don't think they really sat down and defined who's our low-hanging fruit customer. And so then we looked at it and said, okay, well, let's do this thought exercise. So I got software for business analysts to do a big, hairy internal projects for software. Who has that? And the answer to that question was, well,
System integrators?
if you have, no, not those guys, because they use something else too.
Okay.
So they were no good. But where you have this is if you are a non-tech business and you write a lot of internal software, you generally outsource it to India or China. And those are very difficult projects to manage, so you need this software. Okay, so I'm outsourcing building stuff. And 2, I also get the same problem if the company is very acquisitive, so they buy a lot of companies. Then I end up with distributed teams all over the place, and I got to manage
teams.
that, and that's it. Okay, so if you told me, April, build me a marketing plan to go drive leads for Fortune 1000 companies, what the hell am I going to do? Take out a full-page ad in the Wall Street Journal? I don't know how to build a plan for that. No one knows how to build a plan for that. But if you tell me, hey, we want to go after folks that do a lot of M&A, oh my God, this is easy. I got M&A
list.
lawyers. I got conferences that talk about M&A. I can watch for acquisitions and target those accounts. If you tell me folks that do a lot of outsourcing, there's a magazine. It's called like Outsourcers Monthly.
Yeah.
I could take a
There's
full page
associations.
ad. It costs like $5,000 and drive all kinds of money. And like this is easy peasy lemon squeezy.
Yeah.
But you tell me, oh, it's Fortune 1000 companies. I don't know how to market to that. Nobody knows how to market to that.
So you start with the positioning and then look at the channels that those audiences are engaged in.
That's it.
And so for you, you're not saying like, oh, Snapchat's cheap. You don't really care.
Doesn't
You start
matter.
first with
Like
the
if
customer.
my folks are on Snapchat, and so once I get really tight definition on who I'm
are
going
they?
after, then I worry about channels. Then I'm worried about tactical stuff.
Yeah.
And it's really like, do my folks go there? Do my folks hang out there? Do they buy stuff looking at Snapchat? Do they do it? If the answer is yes, yes. If the answer is no, no. The problem we have in marketing, right, is we're super trendy.
Yeah.
We like to chase trends.
Yeah.
And so we do this thing that I call like the marketing fashion assessment.
Yeah.
We'll look around like, what's everyone else doing? Oh, they're blogging. I should blog. Or, oh,
Instagram.
they're doing Instagram. I should be doing some Instagram. We get FOMO because
Yeah.
everyone else, all the cool kids are doing it and I'm not doing it. But that's usually you're chasing your tail. Like
Yeah.
the reason they're doing it and
Marketing,
you're not.
fashion, accessories.
Yeah.
That's
I used to
awesome.
call it the marketing fashion assessment.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's everyone else doing?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yeah, the sheets.
hey, blue's in this year. I
Yeah.
think I'll have the blue one.
Yeah.
So it's like that. And we get sucked up in that in marketing, and we shouldn't be. What we should be doing is saying, look, I got an offering. I'm trying to match it with these people. These people are very specific. And what worked with other people isn't necessarily going to work with my people. I got to understand my people, then I figure out the plan.
One thing that I know that usually comes up between sales and marketing teams is obviously lead quality and whatnot. How do you score, resolve those issues amongst marketing teams doing lead gen and the sales org?
Yeah. So again, if you're getting really super tight on your definition of what a really good low-hanging fruit customer is, you don't have that fight as much because it's pretty well defined. Like they got to meet these 5 criteria, and if they don't, that's a crummy lead.
Okay.
So if they meet all the criteria, like in the way we've defined the segment, then that's a pretty hot lead. And there might be a little bit of gray area in there. Oh, they met 3 out of the 4 or whatever. But you usually have, an SLA between the marketing team and the sales team. Like, look, I'm not going to pass you anything that doesn't hit at least 3 of these check boxes. What's there to fight about? There isn't anything to fight about.
It's interesting. You solve that problem by doing the upfront clear definition.
Everything, like literally all the bad
Downstream.
shit that is happening to you in marketing and sales is because your positioning is not tight.
And then what have you learned about, discovering that from your maybe existing customers or the market? Like, is it customer development interviews? Is it talking to the salespeople?
It's a combination of things.
If you're already at 2 million and
Yeah,
you don't
so-
have this well thought out to this degree.
Which lots of people don't.
Totally.
Like if you're selling, particularly if you're doing big deals
Yeah.
and you got good sales acumen, you can actually kind of muscle your way through to $1 million or $2 million without being really tight on this stuff, and that's fine.
Yeah.
At some point, though, you're going to want to add sales and marketing people to the team, and to scale it beyond that, it's hard to do without doing this tight definition because you're just wasting a lot of money on prospects that aren't a good fit. And so how you actually do this is, when I started going deep on this stuff, I used to think, well, I can survey all my customers and kind of figure this out and figure out, what my differentiated value actually is by just asking everybody. And so I'd run these surveys, and without fail, the answers I get back are like garbage. It's all over the
Watered down,
place. Like, guys, some people love it, some people don't, and then some people like this thing, some people like that thing, and I don't know what to make of this. But now what I do is you basically got to look at, let's say you got to 2 million and you just muscled your way through. If you go and talk to the salespeople or the head of customer service or even the CEO usually and say, how many customers you got? You got 100 customers. How many of those are like great? Like you love them. Like you wish all your customers look like that. Like how many of those are there? And they usually say, like 30 of them are like that. They're fantastic. And how many do you have that you wish you never closed because they're such a pain in the ass? They're a big draw on your support. If you met them in the street now, you wouldn't sell them anything.
Yeah.
You'd be like, keep walking.
Yeah.
And he's like, I probably got 10 of those. So what I say, usually if you're trying to get to this positioning where I'm trying to get to the people that really love my stuff, good fit for my stuff, look at the 30. Now, if you go and you talk to those 30, you hear very definite patterns in a way you don't if you're watering it down with the 10 you wish you didn't have, and the 20 that are like, they're not that
mediocre.
great.
Yeah.
But if you just filter out the really good ones, the ones that are like, they close fast, they didn't ask for a discount, they got your stuff in the first meeting just intuitively, they tell their friends about you, they're like the raving fans. You go to those people and say, what do we got that's so great? Like, why'd you buy us in the first place? How are we different than everyone else? And those people will tell you, and you will see the patterns. If you do customer discovery calls on 10 of those 30, I guarantee you're super smart about this.
Yeah, they'll see it. You know, you've worked with so many incredible founders and CEOs. What do you see great companies doing that are, you know, obviously product market fit, product pulling into the market, or the market pulling the product in, but outside of that, operationally speaking?
Yeah, there's two things. Like, I think what really separates great company from like a company that struggles a bit more, one is this getting really tight on who we sell to and why they're a good fit. So these are the people we sell to, and this is why they want our stuff and why we win. So if you really deeply understand that, the tighter you are on that stuff, the better you do. The second thing is this consistency and stick in that. So sometimes you'll get these companies where they have great positioning, and they'll focus on the one little market, but then they lose it. Like they're just not consistent about it. And 6 months later, they're all over the place again, and everything's loose. And they're not consistent in the way they talk about the value. They're not consistent.
So they
in
might
who
hire
they talk
somebody,
to.
come in, get clear on it, and then just water it down.
And then it kind of gets loosey goosey.
Yeah.
Like, people talk a lot about drift right now. Like people
Conversational marketing.
Conversational marketing, and they're doing that. Like, but I think from the outside, one of the things that I think is amazing about drift is the consistency in the way they talk about the company, the value, who they're for, has
Year
been
over year.
super consistent for years, like
Yeah.
across years.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do because internally you get sick of it. Internally, your marketing team's like, oh God, we're running
We've
another
already said
campaign
that.
on that. Everybody
Yeah.
knows that, and the reality is, no, everybody doesn't
Doesn't
know
know
it. They're
that.
just starting to figure it out by the time you're totally sick of it.
Yeah.
And so this consistency of being able to stick it way longer than you think.
Yeah, like we were
way
talking
longer
about
than
this
you
at dinner.
think.
It's we get tired with our marketing before the market does.
Totally. We do.
Right, and it's the ability to stick to the message. I mean, no software, Salesforce, they were on that
Forever.
ever,
Like a decade.
yeah.
Like,
I love that. So you're saying that's what you see great operational companies.
great operational companies, they deeply understand this is the value and these are the people that care about the value and why. And then they figure out this nice, crisp messaging and positioning,
Yeah.
and then they're super consistent about it over time, and they don't muck with what's not broken.
And what about hiring somebody to run a marketing department? What do you think their skill set should be? And how should they divvy things up?
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of it depends on, again, the market you're going after.
Yeah.
And so it's
Let's say mid-market, 2 to 10 mil ARR.
Yeah, like one of the big mistakes that people make with hiring a marketing leader is they haven't done enough marketing to know what works and what doesn't work for their folks.
Yeah.
So they hire for the wrong skill set. So the problem with marketing is, we come in all flavors, right? So, there's some people are really good with front of the funnel stuff. Some people are really good with back of the funnel stuff. Some people are really good tactically on
Content.
SEO or
Yeah.
content or
Paid.
PR
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
And
everything looks like a nail.
right.
Yeah.
And so you hire that person, and then you come in and say, oh yeah, you're really amazing at all this paid stuff, but we don't do paid. So do this other thing. These are bad hires. And it's not because they're a bad marketer. It's just you hired someone that's really deep on a bunch of stuff you don't need. And it's almost impossible to find a marketer that does everything.
Yeah.
And so you really want to, I don't think people need industry expertise, but I think if you
Channel expertise almost.
Yeah, like
So-
I
so
think
this is
if you've
interesting.
sold to
Yeah.
enterprise, if you're a marketer and you've done lots of stuff in B2B enterprise, you shouldn't go be the head of marketing at
SMB.
something that's selling SMB. Like, you're going to kind of suck.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
like for me, I'm B2B enterprise. And like, anytime I get outside of that, I feel like a dummy because I am a dummy because that's not my thing.
That's not your thing.
That's not my thing.
So it's interesting. So it's once you know the customer, what channels or what places they're going to show up in, then figure out the tactics that are traditional for those things. Because I mean, some of my clients they do like event marketing, right? And it's just like for
Events
a lot
are hot again. For a while, events were terrible,
they
and
were
now
like,
events
don't
are
do it.
good.
It costs,
now
yeah.
events are good.
Yeah. So if you're trying
you
to
never
hire
know,
somebody,
man. Like,
do they have a track record of managing event teams and stuff?
right,
Which
like
is-
anybody that's done enterprise stuff has done events.
Yeah.
Like there's
Yeah.
you can't find an enterprise marketer that hasn't done events because
Yeah.
and even like events were really good for a while and then they were nothing.
Yeah.
Like we stopped doing events and now they're good again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's some magic to running an event really well.
Totally.
Like most people run events terribly.
Yeah.
Like if you look at which is why it's really great when you run it well. It's so effective because you're in a trade show with 90 booths
Yeah.
and 89 of them are a couple of sales reps
Horrible.
sitting there talking to each other, looking at their phones.
Yeah.
And then there's 2 booths that are like
Making it work.
making noise and handing out prizes and cooking up popcorn and
Yeah.
whatever and catching leads like maniacs. And the reason they can do that is because nobody else is even trying. Anyway, so I gotta think about events. I think people waste a lot of money on events. I think if you're gonna do it, you got to do it. You need a pre-event plan, you need a during-event plan, you need a post-event plan.
Yeah.
If you got all that stuff together, you can just crush events.
and if you know who your customers, you know which ones to go do.
you know which ones that are worth your time to go do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what about like the leadership style of some of these fast growth software companies in regards to like values or the way they hired, because obviously you've built these teams.
Yeah, like some of them, they're all different. Like if I look back at the ones that I've been in, it's amazing how different they are. I mean, we like to, in startup world, we like to talk about the patterns, right? So we like to say, great CEO does this. But my experience has been the opposite, is there's lots of ways to be successful. There's lots of types of personalities that run great teams in different ways. I will say that the best leaders I've worked for have been fairly self-aware. Like even if they weren't great leaders, they were aware of the fact that they weren't great
Yeah.
leaders.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like I mean, if I've worked at some companies where the leadership team, well, not the team, but I'm not sure the CEO was all that great, but the team around him was amazing.
He was smart enough to hire those people.
He that was his
That's the
skill.
yeah,
I'll
no,
tell
and
you,
I
that
like
was
that.
his skill.
Yeah.
Was he built an amazing team and a bunch of rock stars that worked really well together too. Like there's some magic in that. But I've worked at other places where the leader's really strong, the team's kind of,
Mediocre.
and then we make that work too. Like it's funny how different. Like if I look, you get this perspective. Like most people only work at 1 or 2 startups. You go across 7 and you lean back, then plus a bunch of big companies that acquired mine. So all in, you got like a dozen companies or so, and it's amazing how different they
They're
are.
so different.
It's amazing.
Like a fingerprint.
Yeah, like in looking for patterns, I think is maybe a bit. Sometimes you get lucky on the market. The market's hot, and you just timed it right, and all the boats are rising because the water's going up, and you're all going to be successful, and it's kind of hard to mess it up.
Totally.
Sometimes. And then other times, like, you fight like hell, and you're just executing like crazy, and you make a thing happen out of nothing, and that's cool too. But, like, again, I look across all the companies, and I'm like, I don't see any patterns. They all look different.
April, who did you need to become to be the marketing leader you are today?
Who did I need to become? At the beginning, I'll tell you one thing. For a while, I worked at IBM twice. And so I doing all these little companies, but companies get acquired or whatever. And so the first time I worked at IBM, I had this great boss. And he told me, he's like, I get it, like you come from being a startup, but like, do you want to spend the rest of your life just doing stuff or you want to lead the team? And at IBM, they had a term for it. It was called a doobie, and it was derogatory. He's like, you want to be a doobie forever? And I was like, dude, I come from startups. We're not allowed to not do stuff.
Yeah.
And we'd have this fight. So we had a fight about this, like every time we had like a little one-on-one time. my boss would say, you're doing, like, I see you. You got a super strong team. Why are you doing anything? I don't understand why you're doing all this stuff. And at the beginning, I thought he was just plain wrong about that. Like, I thought, oh, yeah, you're IBMer, fat cat guys. Yeah, all you guys want to do is do nothing, right? Like, you're a do nothing. You think I'm a doobie? You do nothing. And he kept saying, you know what, you got to figure that out. And he kept calling it professional maturity. He's like, the reason you're not getting promotion here, April, is you lack professional maturity. And I'm like, I do not understand what that means. You're going to have to define it for me. And he kept saying, it's kind of a thing. I don't know how to put my finger on it, but, you're not the leader you could be, blah, blah, blah. And then I ended up leaving IBM, and I went to another startup, and I had it was a bigger company. Like, I call them a startup, but they were 80 million revenue. They're pretty big, and I had a pretty big team there. And subconsciously, that guy got to me, because I got to my new thing, and I had this great big team. And my job was to really just clear the path for them to do stuff. My job was to be an accelerator, right? I had this hotshot team. Everybody's amazing at their stuff. And all they needed me to do was just get blockage out of the way. So I had to deal with the founder and say, leave my people alone. If you got a problem, you come talk to me, and then I'll deal with it. But don't distract them, because they're amazing and everything they're doing is amazing. If we need budget to do this thing, I'll go get the budget. If I need to convince sales, I'll go convince sales for you. You let me handle that. You just keep doing what you're doing. And then all of a sudden I had it. This professional maturity thing. And then the crazy thing is I started seeing it in other people that are coming to me going, why am I not vice president yet? And I'm like my old boss from IBM. I'm like, you lack professional maturity.
I love how it came
and I
around.
had to try to explain that to people. But there was I do feel like there was a switch that flipped at some point in my career where I went from being really good tactical execution, get it done marketing person to being the leader, right? The person that deserves a seat at the executive team, the person that's impacting the business strategy of the entire person, the person that can go in and say, look, you guys, we got this all wrong. And the rest of the team listens to me, as opposed to the person that says, here's the spreadsheet, here's the numbers, here's how many leads I generated, blah, blah, blah. That person doesn't belong in the boardroom.
April, where do people find you? What's the best place for them to find you online?
Well, I have a website. It's aprildunford.com.
Yeah.
I used to do more stuff on social. I'm kind of active on Twitter still. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at
I just rebooted I unfollowed everybody and refollowed all the sassy fun people.
I may need to do
it
that.
made Twitter relevant again for me.
Yeah, I did do a massive unfollow of people that were just making me angry.
Yeah.
That was
we're
good.
allowed to do. Yeah. So Twitter's good. Aprildunford.com.
Twitter's good. Aprildunford.com. Yeah, I've spent the last year writing this book. And so because I've been writing a book, I haven't written anything else. Like if I have any cycles to write, so I stopped blogging, I stopped doing everything. Now that the book is out-ish, like it's in pre-orders now, and it'll be out.
What's it called?
In a few weeks. It's called Obviously Awesome.
Everybody go check it out.
Go check
it out.
the book. But now that I've done that, I'm going to go back to blogging because I miss blogging. I'm going to go back to writing. I'm going to go back to writing some stuff. Now that I'm not writing a book, I can write other things.
Awesome. Everybody should check you out. Appreciate it, April.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, good to be
Super
here.
fun convo.
Thanks for watching this episode of Escape Velocity. Be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment with your biggest insight from our conversation. Be sure to check out the next episode.